Red Bull has reportedly uncovered evidence suggesting a certain papaya-coloured team might be gaining an unfair advantage by cooling their tyres with water. And with only 3 races left and 49 points to chase, Christian Horner's squad will take any help they can get, especially from the FIA. But is there any merit to their accusation? Let's find out right now. According to reports, Red Bull believes McLaren and other teams may have been adding small amounts of water through tyre valves to keep temperatures in check. These suspicions have led F1's governing body, the FIA, to open an investigation into the allegations. This latest speculation adds fuel to a year filled with rumours about inventive tech tweaks, from asymmetric braking systems and flexible front wings to McLaren's mini DRS and Red Bull's front bib adjuster, as F1's top teams up their game in an increasingly fierce competition. When the performance gap narrows, teams often resort to politicking to hinder rivals rather than investing heavily to replicate their innovations, a strategic move to conserve resources. The latest buzz centres on Red Bull's suspicion that some teams may be adding trace amounts of liquid when inflating their tyres, potentially to help control temperatures. While several teams remain unnamed, sources suggest Red Bull's main interest lies with their closest rival, McLaren, who has denied any involvement in such tactics. What's interesting is that Red Bull is no stranger to this practice, having once used it themselves before the FIA banned it with a technical directive years back. Pirelli tyres are known for their heat sensitivity, making cooling methods like this an enticing edge. This issue lands in a bit of a regulatory grey area, as technical directives are advisory rather than binding. It's ultimately up to the stewards to interpret the regulations and decide if any rules have been breached. In this scenario, F1's technical rules specify only the removal of moisture from tyres, not the addition. So technically, inflating tyres with moist air doesn't appear explicitly prohibited under current rules. From Pirelli's standpoint, it provides teams with tyres inflated using dry air. Mario Isola, Pirelli's head of car racing and F1, commented that, "We have a dryer connected to our system and they get all the tyres with dry air as in the regulation. In the technical directive, it's written that any modification to this is forbidden, and it's quite clear." Red Bull reportedly raised this issue with the FIA, convinced that some teams may be gaining an edge by modifying the air composition in their tyres and possibly injecting a cooling liquid, such as water or another substance, through the valve. Allegations of this technique emerged after water and watermark traces were reportedly found inside some rims when the tyres were stripped at Pirelli's facility following the Singapore race. With BBS now providing standardised wheel rims for all teams, options for custom modifications, such as knurling the rim surface, adjusting spoke designs or tweaking geometries, are off the table. To add to that, regulations specify the design of the outer wheel cover and much of the brake duct fence, further reducing their use for individual aerodynamic or thermal advantages. But the brake assembly and internal drum design remain an area where engineers can still play around and innovate. Despite new restrictions, teams can explore ways to control brake heat and transfer it to the tyre's bulk temperature via the wheel rim, offering a key strategic edge. The likely effect of this watery approach is a slight reduction in tyre temperature compared to using purely dry air, but with a simultaneous increase in pressure. At first glance, this may seem disadvantageous, as teams typically aim to keep tyre pressures as close as possible to Pirelli's minimum recommendation to boost performance. But under the current regulations, where cars benefit from minimised ride height fluctuations and must stay low to maximise gains, running slightly higher pressure could be advantageous. Mario Isola, Pirelli's head of F1 racing, supports this view, noting that teams have previously sacrificed some tyre grip in pursuit of aerodynamic performance, even if it meant a short-term trade-off. "I remember, a few years ago, most of the teams were increasing the front pressure to have a stiffer tyre and go lower with the ride height," he said. "They accepted to have this smaller contact patch because the aero setup of the car was better. So the balance between the two was about performance, because of the downforce they were able to achieve." The FIA reportedly conducted a thorough inspection of tyres and rims during the Brazilian Grand Prix to check for any signs of extra moisture, but found nothing amiss. While this heightened scrutiny likely means that any team experimenting with this tactic will now stop, it won't quiet Red Bull's speculation about whether anyone might have gotten away with it earlier in the season. Regardless of any potential advantage McLaren may have gained, Red Bull is not out of the fight for the Constructors' Championship yet. But it's clear that the team's chances heavily rely on Sergio Perez stepping up. The Mexican driver has had a challenging season, with only a handful of standout performances, mostly in the early races. This inconsistency has put extra pressure on Max Verstappen, who has shouldered the team's title hopes, delivering win after win. But Verstappen's efforts alone haven't been enough to keep Red Bull ahead. McLaren and Ferrari have now surpassed them in the constructors' standings, leaving Red Bull in third place, 49 points behind McLaren. While Verstappen's dominance in recent races has all but sealed his fourth consecutive title, the constructors' battle is still up for grabs, but only if Perez can start scoring more consistently. Christian Horner, who has already hinted that Perez's future at the team may be uncertain despite a contract through 2026, has called for more from the Mexican driver. With Red Bull needing every point it can get to stay competitive against McLaren and Ferrari, Horner is urging Perez to deliver if the team has any hope of fighting for the Constructors' Championship. Formula One, as we know, is a results-driven business, and Sergio is fully aware of that, Horner told TalkSport's YouTube channel. He's not happy with how the season has gone as he expected. But he's old enough and wise enough to recognise that. Our focus is still on the Constructors' Championship, and we need Sergio to be there scoring points in these last 3 races if we are to have any chance of challenging Ferrari or McLaren. For now, at least, they can take solace in their strong driver's title position. To add to their peace of mind, the ever-outspoken Eddie Jordan has raised serious doubts about Lando Norris's potential to become a Formula One world champion, bluntly asserting that the 24-year-old simply hasn't got it. On the Formula for Success podcast with co-host David Coulthard, Jordan delivered a harsh critique of Norris's missed chances this season, with particular focus on his performance at last weekend's Sao Paulo Grand Prix. After Norris secured pole at Interlagos, fans were hopeful the McLaren driver could close the points gap on championship leader Max Verstappen. Yet, Verstappen's remarkable drive from 17th to victory overshadowed the weekend, while Norris's 6th-place finish underscored the gap between them. Coulthard acknowledged the setback for Norris's title ambitions, but reminded listeners that the McLaren driver's potential is still very much alive. He said, "Lando is the real deal. He will have his moment. He will challenge for the world title, whether it's in the remaining races of this year, or whether it's next year when there's an element of stability, and McLaren are certainly going into, arguably, the best place for that. So, his time will come." Despite Coulthard's positive words, Jordan remained unconvinced, arguing that Norris's recent performances don't show the qualities of a true champion. For Jordan, Verstappen's impressive drive to victory highlighted the gap in what Norris has yet to prove. Unflinching in his critique, Jordan pointed to what he sees as Norris's inability to perform under pressure, a crucial trait for any aspiring world champion. "Lando hasn't quite got there yet," he said. "He hasn't got there on the start, he hasn't got there on the pole position run to the corner. He has the speed beyond any doubt, but there's nothing in me that tells me that I've seen in Lando something that I saw in what Max could do on Sunday. Nothing. I'm sorry. It's just not there." How about you? Do you have faith in Lando Norris's chances next year, or do you also think that he doesn't have it? Tell us in the comments section down below. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching.